Welcome back. You're watching KTN News Desk. Glad you could join us. IEBC commissioners and members of the Secretariat have begun their retreat in a Naivasha hotel. The poll body is strategizing on the conduct of the repeat presidential elections scheduled for the 17th of October. And our reporter, Sophia Wanuna, is closely following the happenings there. She now joins us live from Naivasha with an update. Sophia, what's the latest from your end?
Good afternoon, Akisa. We are following up on that retreat, as you mentioned here, of the IEBC commissioners as well as top officials from the Secretariat. This coming after that epic fallout that was witnessed last week. And there's been a lot of speculation around what exactly is on the agenda in today's session. But what we can confirm right now from sources within, they're actually not engaged in conversation amongst themselves, but there are speakers that have been invited in this session. Earlier on, the team from IEBC was addressed by Reverend Bishop Rotich, and he was speaking to the IEBC team about being a team and why it is important for them to be a team for the sake of the nation. So this coming after that rift that was witnessed with commissioners differing, the Secretariat as well as the Commission being at loggerheads. So earlier on, Reverend Bishop Rotich speaking to the IEBC commissioners and the Secretariat about being a team, especially at this critical time where they still must work together cohesively ahead of that 17th of October repeat presidential election. We also understand Dr. Wale Akinyemi, who's a motivational speaker, is addressing the IEBC team about the importance of a legacy and what legacy they want to leave. They must leave, that they must keep that in mind as they continue here on forward. Whatever steps they take, whatever moves, whatever decisions must really be grounded and informed by the fact that in the end, after all has been said and done, they will be judged on what actions they take at this critical point in as far as Kenya's democracy is concerned as we gear to that election. So at this particular point, the memo is not under discussion or a topic of discussion right now. The issues within, not really, but it's a time to reflect for the IEBC. It's a time to get words of wisdom, if you like, from an outsider, somebody who might have different perspectives and is not entangled with the day-to-day goings-on within the Commission. So largely a team building, Akisa, at this particular point. The Commission taking time to reflect, sit back, and really just take a moment out of all of that heat they have witnessed in the last couple of days, Akisa. But later on, it is expected they will then be venturing into the very serious, crucial points of discussion they must get to ahead of that repeat poll, Akisa.
So does this mean with the epic fallout that you talk about that was witnessed last week between the commissioners and the Secretariat, does it mean we will be getting third parties to help them solve the internal issues they've been having as a commission?
Not really third parties to help them sort the issues they've been having, but we're seeing a reverend coming in, a motivational speaker coming in. So it's really a time to recenter, if you like, the IEBC, to get them back on track, because the issues they grapple with, it must really at the end of the day be up to them to resolve them. They are an independent body after all, so it is expected there shouldn't be outside interference in as far as their core mandate, despite also all of the additional, whether you like, proposals that are coming in from the political divide, both of them. In the end, IEBC as a team must move forward as an independent organization and with their mandate very clearly set before them. So right now, the engagement we are seeing, from the religious leader coming in to just speak to them about what really must continue to be the big picture, a motivational speaker as well to encourage them and remind them that they are going to be judged by whatever decisions they take, especially from this critical moment after that very harsh indictment by the Supreme Court, a ruling, a judgment that saw the annulment of the presidential election. So that all eyes right now are on the Commission. And so this is really a time, as I said, Akisa, for them to reflect. And so these individuals that have been invited to speak to them, Akinyemi, a motivational speaker, a reverend as well, really a sobering moment for the commissioners and the Secretariat to perhaps put aside all of these other differences, all of the political interests that are weighing in, and keep their eye on the ball and ensure that in the end, as they leave this retreat, all hands are on deck to ensure they deliver on their mandate, Akisa.
Let's quickly go through what really we should expect. Sophia, how long will this particular retreat take, and what do we expect to come out of it just about 35 days to the elections?
So after this team building, as we've heard the commissioners and the rest of the team that is here calling it, it is expected that they should now come from this retreat center with a clearer focus, with a more united purpose to really prepare for that election. It's just 35 days, as you said, Akisa, and there's been a lot of conflict. So it is expected after this, they're now able to sit back and plan and prepare and iron out the issues, because there's going to be a lot of need for all sides, whether it's the commissioners, the secretariat, to concede some ground in order to allow for there to be unity of purpose going forward. The hardline positions or accusations and counter-accusations we've witnessed that led to this fallout cannot continue if IEBC is to deliver a credible, free, fair, transparent, accountable election in just under 35 days. But also, they are waiting on that reasoned judgment that is going to be coming from the Supreme Court that will highlight those real areas in as far as the irregularities and illegalities that the judges mentioned when they were ruling. So what at this point to expect, Akisa, is that after the team is able to come back and read from the same script, all focus will be on preparing for that fresh election. And however, it's important to note that this commissioners, this entire team, is also dealing with a lot of pressure from both political divides, whether it's NASA. There are those demands, NASA maintaining they will not go to this election with the IEBC CEO still in office. And we've also heard from Jubilee and the Deputy President coming out to criticize the chair of the IEBC, casting aspersions, making allegations, indicating that he was meeting with the opponents. So it is crucial at this time for the Commission to really try and distance or, if possible, themselves from the politics of this and really just consider that there is a mandate they must deliver on. So those are things we will perhaps be seeing and hearing from them. And more importantly, before I give it back to you, Akisa, that project team, it is one that has raised a lot of discomfort from both sides, even within the commission. Some of the commissioners not in agreement with that team being announced by the chair to manage the presidential repeat election. So we will hear thereafter what agreements, what decisions they will reach. But at this point, the IEBC team keen on just getting together to be a cohesive team.
Well, Sophia Anuna, our senior reporter there, joining us live from Naivasha, where that particular IEBC retreat is currently ongoing, talking about the speakers that have been invited to speak to the team there. One of them, Reverend Bishop Rotich, who's spoken to the team about the importance of working as a team from that fallout that was witnessed last week. Seemingly a very important move there, while Dr. Wale Akinyemi is currently speaking to the team about the importance of legacy, the kind of legacy they will leave behind as the electoral body conducting this particular presidential election expected in the next 35 days. So let's put this into context. Joining me in studio now is Peter Lingo, a senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. Thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News Desk. This new approach that the IEBC has taken after the blame game and the roller coaster of emotions we saw last week, how effective do you think it will be?
Thank you very much. Look, after the exercise that we saw the IEBC go through that culminated in the August 8th elections, I think we must all agree that, look, this was an extremely energy-sapping exercise that nearly took all the energy out of the IEBC. And therefore, a retreat like this is extremely necessary for a number of reasons. One, it gives IEBC the opportunity to just recheck the energy levels so that this can then be improved and strengthened where necessary. But most importantly, to reflect. It's a question of reflection. And I think a retreat like this offers that opportune moment to reflect on the past, the immediate current issues, and those issues that still remain on the table to be done. We all agree that moving forward within the next 35 days, or so that are remaining to the fresh elections that we expect on 17th of October, the IEBC has quite a lot on their table.
Yeah.
And this will require a lot of things, a lot of reflection, a lot of engagement, a lot of planning. And as an organization, there is always the normal wear and tear. And beyond the normal wear and tear, we've also seen the element that politics is playing in terms of the overall unity of purpose that the IEBC requires and the internal coherence and strengthening that the IEBC requires in order for it to deliver effectively on what we expect them in terms of their mandate. So yes, this is an important exercise. I would like to see the IEBC commissioners and the secretariat together with the people they have invited to help them through this exercise. Pay a lot of attention to this, give it the effort, energy, and the focus that it deserves, so that at the end of the day, when they come out of this retreat, we see one united IEBC speaking with one voice, one IEBC that Kenyans can have confidence in terms of discharging their mandate, in terms of giving us a good, quality, credible elections on 17th of October.
Yes, you mentioned something very important, confidence. Currently, there isn't much on that particular team. 35 days to the election. How would they rebuild this among Kenyans?
There are two things that IEBC needs to do now, moving forward. One, well, of course, they have to wait for the detailed court ruling in order to see where they went wrong. The detailed aspects, the nitty-gritty that the court will speak to, that will require them to reflect on and do something about. That is one thing. I think the IEBC will need to tell Kenyans that, look, this is the court ruling. These are the things which they need to isolate very quickly in terms of the detailed issues and a plan of action on how to address them moving forward. That is one aspect of giving Kenyans the confidence. Two, speaking to the political environment, which is critical, because the larger majority of Kenyans, in terms of their perspectives and perceptions, are things that are shaped by the political dynamics, particularly the utterances that are coming from the political divide, the two protagonists, to be precise. So the IEBC needs to tell Kenyans that, one, they are above these political dynamics that we are seeing. That, two, they are truly independent. And three, that these dynamics have no effect on their overall preparations, they are not undermining their independence, and that they are not keeping them away from the overall trophy that has to be delivered for Kenyans on the 17th of October. Those are the critical things. Now, how do we get the IEBC to do this? We need to see a team that is together. So this team building, reflection, rebuilding and planning together so that there is an overall plan that is jointly owned by the IEBC that can then be discussed. And this is the next thing that the IEBC needs to tell Kenyans, that they will come out of this place with a plan that has been reflected carefully upon, a plan that is reasonable, a plan that they will then put out there to Kenyans, for Kenyans to understand. And they must remember that part of this is the politics in it. And that is the bigger picture here that the IEBC needs to reflect on.
So what we are saying is they also need to have a political approach in this?
Precisely. Because we know elections is not just about the technical preparations and delivery on the technical aspects of the elections. It is about how you manage the political expectations. Because the key players here are the political actors, the protagonists here, the two camps that are going to participate in these fresh elections. So you must ensure that you put on the table not just something that strikes a balance and meets the expectations of the two sides, but something that you're prepared to carry forward in terms of bringing the two sides on board. So there will be in a critical way, IEBC needs to begin to set a process that will bring the understanding of the two sides to bear on the plan that they have for the delivery of the October 17 elections.
But even as this happens, Kenyans have already been treated to blame game between the commissioners and the secretariat. That memo that has been sent from Chebukati to Chiloba, asking very tough questions on what really went wrong on August the 8th, where some commissioners have been siding with the secretariat and others not. How do they rise above this? Because as is, some of their names have been tainted on the public eye. They've already been judged by the public court of public opinion.
That will always happen. And I think the thing about this is that it is unfortunate that IEBC was able to wash its dirty linen in the public. That is extremely unfortunate. And it's not acceptable of a professional institution. I think it's a lesson they've learned. They should not, and they need not do this again. But having said that, the things are there in the public domain. I think what the public needs to see now is a comprehensive response to those issues that can put to rest those issues. And this needs to be done in the context of the detailed judgment that we expect from the court. And what the IEBC needs to do is not to begin, to take further the blame game. I think the blame game needs to end now. They need now to focus. We need to see comprehensive responses to these issues. We need to see this in the context of the detailed judgment. We need to see a plan in terms of responding to those issues that will enable the gaps and the issues that have been raised to be resolved before we get to the next elections. This is what the IEBC needs to put out to the public as a plan, as their agenda for Kenyans, for the delivery of these elections.
But a section of leaders and good section of Kenyans also expect that there would be a cleanup exercise at the IEBC, even as we head to the next presidential election. Do you think this would be a viable option to consider?
Depending on the critical issues that will come out from the detailed court judgment, I think Kenyans still have certain expectations. And these expectations are not just going to die away. By and large, the IEBC needs to do some sweeping that can put to rest the doubts that have been raised out of the Supreme Court verdict. And that is what Kenyans need to see, some level of cleanliness as we approach the next elections. And the IEBC needs to take a common approach towards this, an approach that is completely insulated from political implications, from political attacks, from political infiltration. That is what Kenyans need to see.
Political attacks, these are some of the things that have seemingly been hindering the IEBC since that particular ruling. They have been getting attacks from right, left, center, the project team that both teams seemingly don't really agree with the IEBC. Are they making work harder for this team?
Extremely. They are making work extremely harder for the IEBC. I think we must begin from the critical point, and that is that we created IEBC as an institution and insulated it with an element of independence. There is history to that, and the reasons why we chose the independence model as opposed to the governmental model that we have had in the past. And so because that is what we have, and that is what our Constitution speaks to, our role as actors, particularly the political actors, is now more than ever to assist IEBC to be prepared fully for the polls on 17th of October. And we can't do that by continuing the attacks. We have noted, we have heard from the Supreme Court, and we have noted as Kenyans that there were structural issues, there were challenges. I think our focus should be on how to help the IEBC to address those structural setbacks, structural gaps, and the challenges that the Supreme Court highlighted. And we can't do that by attacking them. We can only do that by constructive engagement, that, look, these are the things that need to be done. And here now, the appeal is on the political actors to be sober. Let us be sober now. We need it more than ever. Within the next 34 days, today is the 35th day, 34 days, if we continue with the political intrigues and exchanges that raise temperatures unnecessarily, we are taking this country to the brink of the precipice. Things that we don't know and we don't anticipate because the Constitution does not talk about them. We don't want this to continue. We don't want to get to a week to 17th of October and anxiety and intention in this country is in the sky. That would be dangerous, that would be detrimental, that would be terrible, that would be horrendous. What we need to do is sober up, cool down now. It's the moment to cool down.
Yeah.
Political grandstanding, let's put them aside. Let's take our interests, our own political interests out of this, whether we won or lost. The bitterness that we see from both sides, let's put it under the carpet. Yeah? Simmer that. And let's take the nation as Kenya, you know, and try to figure out what if something wrong goes on with this nation in the next couple of days? Who is to blame? All of us as Kenyans.
Yes.
So, as political actors, the appeal now is sober up, cool down, calm down. Things went wrong. Let us now try to fix them within the shortest time possible so that we are able to deliver the elections within the time frame that the Constitution requires on 17th of October.
Peter, in a number of countries where democracies have made very huge steps, electoral bodies are highly respected regardless of the kind of political tensions or anxieties that are there. But in this country, the IEBC still seems to not have put its foot down as an independent institution. As a researcher, in your own assessment, what do you think keeps ailing our electoral bodies that there's no much level of respect from all sides of the political divides for them?
We have a political problem. That is how I see it. It's not an institutional problem. It's a political problem. And a political problem in the sense that there is so much political mistrust and distrust that generates suspicion that then permeates into the public mind. That is what poisons the environment and therefore pollutes the very, very foundation upon which institutions of governance like the IEBC can consolidate their mandate and their efforts. That is the problem. We need to begin to develop our politics in a different trajectory, a trajectory that can enable our politics to mature so that we do not have an environment which is poisoned politically on the basis of political distrust, mistrust, and suspicion. Once we are able to pass that bar, then we will have a situation where institutions, whether IEBC or any other institution, will then have a conducive environment within which to operate. Independence is not just about something written in the books. Independence is about practice as well. And that practice also involves respect from key actors. And these are the political actors. If you don't have respect, then don't talk about independence. It is not there. We undermine the independence of institutions because we are suspicious politically. And that is the problem with us as Kenyans. That is the problem with our politics as Kenyans. I think moving forward, and the lessons that we learn out of this, is that the trajectory of our political dynamics and configuration has to change. As Kenyans, we need to do a soul searching so that if we are able to have a constitution like we do, and we genuinely want to develop a culture of constitutionalism, then we have to begin to respect institutions. It is until then that our institutions will operate, will function fully and will give us the things that we expect of them in relation to their constitutional mandates.
Once the IEBC comes out after that particular retreat to address Kenyans after the lull we've seen when they've retreated to Naivasha, what are some of the things you expect should come out of the commission that will calm the situation as is in the country or even restore confidence in that institution?
I will expect two immediate things. One, that the IEBC comes out of Naivasha with a clear operational plan for the delivery of the elections on 17th of October. That is one. Two, I would like to see IEBC speak to the critical publics. One, the citizens of this country in terms of rebuilding, restoring the confidence that IEBC is on top of things, is capable, has the capacity, is not divided, is one, and has a plan. And this is the plan. Three, I would like to see the IEBC speak to the political environment. And speaking to the political environment means speaking to the two protagonists, the two sides in these fresh elections, in a sense that puts on the table an agenda that can create a sense of common understanding and a common way forward and a common roadmap and a common ownership of that roadmap towards the delivery of the next elections. The thing that we have seen that has generated a lot of issues is about the independence of the IEBC. The IEBC has to speak to that again and again, that they are independent, not just in writing, as it is in the Constitution, but indeed they are able, ready, and willing, and will, for all intent and purposes, manage and conduct the fresh elections on 17th of October perfectly well. So the thing that IEBC needs to do is give to Kenyans that confidence. Tell Kenyans that IEC has its focus on delivering the fresh elections, that IEBC has learned from the Supreme Court and the last elections, and that IEBC has the following plan in order to make sure that those challenges that were highlighted by the Supreme Court do not recur again, and that Kenyans should have total confidence in the institution.
All right, Peter, always a pleasure to have you here on a KTN News Desk. Peter Lingo is a senior researcher at the Institute of Security Studies. Thank you very much once again for coming in as we discuss